On Business Incorporated today. Workers in Africa join the world to celebrate May Day. United Nations World Food Programme lifts suspension of operations in Sudan. And Kenyan state corporations owe 920 billion shillings. Happy May Day and congratulations to workers all around the world today as we celebrate the workers and look into their welfare and affairs that concern them. I'm Ini John Mekwa. This is Business Incorporated. You're welcome. So let's head to the market. Markets in Africa are closed. Workers have gone to do parade and march and celebrate themselves. But we move over to the Middle East, where we see most of the markets there are negative at intraday. Abu Dhabi is 0.67%. Looking at the numbers and details there, 0.67% in the negative, and that's at 9,723.75. Dubai is also negative 0.17%. And 3,500. Saudi Arabia is closed, but it closed negative 0.35%. Qatar also closed, but it's 0.75% in the positive. Well, let's go to Europe, where the markets are closed, but we do have some stories coming from there. Today, Germany is launching a long-awaited flat-rate public transport ticket that will be valid nationwide, and it's dubbed Germany Tickets. It costs €49 per month, and it's seen as a way to relieve inflation as well as an incentive towards public transport usage. We have correspondent Andrea Nepori there joining us to give us details of this. Hi, Andrea. Happy Workers' Day. But tell us about this new ticket, and is it just for residents in Germany?
Well, happy May 1st, and thanks for having me. The Deutschland ticket is a flat rate ticket. For only €49, it provides a limited access to bus, metro, plus local and regional trains all over Germany. And that includes of all forms of local transport in cities. Only long-distance high-speed trains are excluded. It's a follow-up to the wildly popular €9 ticket, which ran as an experiment last summer. The government has called this the biggest transport reform in German history and sees it both as a relief against inflation and the way to incentivize people to leave their car at home and choose a more sustainable transportation option. The good news is that you don't need to be a resident to buy the ticket. It's available to anyone traveling to Germany. That means that going forward, tourists as well could save quite some money when traveling throughout the country.
Yeah, sounds good, and some countries might have to learn from that. But how much has Germany set aside for this, and what are the reactions so far?
Yeah, financing for the ticket is expected to cost about €3 billion in public money. The federal government will contribute €1.5 billion, while the federal states altogether will provide the remaining half. So far, pre-sale has been successful with more than 750,000 tickets sold. The German Association of Transportation Companies expects a total sales of about 17 million tickets. For people who already take public transport, is a big relief, considering that monthly subscriptions here in Germany in cities can cost between 80 and €100. There's, of course, also some pushback. The opposition says that, for example, the money could have been better spent on renovating and expanding the rail network faster than planned. Another criticism is that the measure won't offer much relief to people who live in rural areas without good access to public transportation or the rail network.
Yeah, I guess you can't please everybody one way or the other. But the markets are closed. What are the expectations? And then we have that First Republic Bank also making the news in that area.
Well, while it's a big topic here in Germany, I'll concede that the debate about the ticket is exactly a market mover, but markets in Europe are closed for the 1st of May holiday today, but nonetheless, for the week ahead, all eyes are on the US for hints of further banking turmoil. Over the weekend, regulators have been working hard to find a solution to the struggles of First Republic Bank. It's the third US bank to fail in 2 months. The institute has now been seized with assets being sold to JP Morgan. We'll see how this decision on the matter will affect Europe tomorrow, considering we're also not that far away from recent instability in the banking sector. And of course, I'm talking here about the collapse of Credit Suisse. Markets are coming from a good week anyway. Friday, they finished higher with shares in Germany leading the region. The DAX was up 0.77%, while London's FTSE 100 was up 0.5%.
All right, we hope it opens positive also. Thank you so much, Andrea, for that update. All right, let's move to Asia now. Australian and Japanese markets are both trading higher, even as most Asian markets are closed for the Labor Day holiday, which is today. Let's take a closer look now. The ASX 200 of Australia is positive 0.35% at 7,334.60. Nikkei is also positive almost 1%, 0.92 there at 29,123.18. Kospi also is green, 0.23% at 2,501.53, and HSI is also positive 0.27% at 19,894.57. Shanghai is doing best there. We see more than 1% in the positive at 1.14%. We move to the United States now, where U.S. stock futures hovered around the flat line on Monday after the major averages logged gains for April, and traders assessed the takeover of failed bank First Republic. Futures tied to the Dow Jones were also looking good there. Looking at the details, Dow Jones 0.04% marginally, but still in the green. Same region with S&P 500, NASDAQ also marginally up at 0.02%. While the moves come after news that JP Morgan Chase has acquired all of the troubled lender First Republic's deposits, and a substantial majority of asset JP Morgan's shares rose 3% in pre-market trading on the news. First Republic reported last week that deposits tumbled more than 40% in the first quarter, triggering further declines in the already struggling stocks. Shares have created 97% since the start of the year. The SPDR S&P Region Banking ETF rose about 0.5% in the pre-market as investors bet the crisis that ignited in March had been contained. Stocks are coming off a winning week and month. On Friday, the blue chip Dow added 272 points, while S&P 500 rose 0.87. NASDAQ Composite advanced 0.69. Oil prices now fell on Monday as jitters over the prospect of the U.S. Federal Reserve raising interest rates combined with weaker Chinese manufacturing data to erase gains. Brent futures for July delivery were down 55 cents at $79.78 a barrel, while U.S. West Texas consumer spending was flat in March as an increase in outlays on services were offset by a decline in goods. But persistent strength in underlying inflation pressures could see the Federal Reserve raising interest rates again. U.S. economic growth slowed more than expected in the first quarter. An acceleration in consumer spending was offset by businesses liquidating inventories in anticipation of weaker demand later this year amid higher borrowing costs. Meanwhile, China's Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index, that's their PMI, declined 49.2 from 51.9 in March and are slipping below the 50-point mark that separates expansion and contraction in activity on a monthly basis. In the metals market, gold prices dipped on Monday as the US dollar held firm, with traders positioning themselves ahead of a much-awaited Federal Reserve rate hike decision, which is due this week. Spot gold was down 0.4% at $1,981 per ounce. US gold futures fell 0.4% to $1,991.70. The dollar index rose 0.1%, making greenback-priced bullion more expensive for overseas buyers. The Federal Open Market Committee will meet on May the 2nd and 3rd, and investors are largely expecting a 25 basis point interest rate hike. Gold prices rose more than 1% in April as renewed concerns over U.S. banking turmoil drove investors to the safe haven asset. The European Central Bank is widely expected to raise rates for the 7th straight meeting on the 4th of May. Top bullion consumer China's manufacturing activity unexpectedly shrank in April. Let's go to the grains market and see what happened there. Chicago wheat futures slid on Monday, with prices trading close to last week's lowest in almost 2 years, as rain in the U.S. plains and easing concerns over Ukrainian supplies weighed on market. Corn and soybeans lost ground, while there will be need to be more rain in the central and northern plains. A wave of precipitation certainly leaves a bearish element in the market. The most active wheat contracts on the Chicago Board of Trade lost 0.7% to $6.29 per half a bushel, and corn gave up 0.4% to $5.82 for half a bushel. Soybeans fell 0.2% to $14.16 for a quarter of a bushel. Recent rain in the drought-hit U.S. plains and forecasts for more eased concerns about hard red winter wheat production in a sign more Ukrainian grain may hit the market. The European Commission said that it had reached a deal in principle to allow the transit of Ukrainian grain to resume through 5 European countries that had imposed restrictions. The corn market is facing headwinds as a large Brazilian crop is easting into demand for U.S. supplies. A bumper Brazilian soy crop is also expected to flow into export markets, and that should offset a drought-hit harvest in Argentina. Now in Sudan, the United Nations World Food Programme has immediately lifted the suspension of its operations in that country that was put in place after the tragic death of its team member. The WFP had on April the 16th made a temporary halt on all operations in Sudan after 3 of its employees were killed in clashes between the Sudanese army and the paramilitary rapid support forces a day earlier. Fighting could be heard in Khartoum early today, Monday, as the United Nations warned of humanitarian breaking point, with rival military forces accusing each other of fresh violations of a ceasefire as their devastating conflict enters a 3rd day. The violence has deepened the humanitarian crisis in Sudan, where a 1/3 of the people were dependent on some form of humanitarian assistance before the fighting erupted. Tens of thousands of people have fled across Sudan's borders and prompted warning the country could disintegrate, destabilizing a volatile region and prompting regional governments to scramble to evacuate their nationals. We certainly hope for peace there. Let's go to Kenya now. Kenya state corporations are yet to repay up to 920 billion shillings bailout cash that the government taxpayers provided the entities to boost their operations and position them for profitability. Treasury data revealed that the government had, as of the 30th of June 2022, lent the entities more than 1 trillion shillings, of which 973 billion was disbursed. Of the disbursed amount, only 52 billion shillings has been repaid. In some instances, the loan were written off, begging the question whether taxpayers would recover the rest. Kenya Railways alone is yet to repay 566 billion shillings, emerging as holding the largest share of the outstanding guaranteed loans. Records further show that Kenya Electricity Generating Company is yet to repay 81 billion shillings it was bailed out by the state. Kenya Power comes third with an unpaid 56 billion shillings, followed by Afi Water Services Board, which had a pending 47.1 billion shillings as of June 30th, 2022. Kenya Airways PLC is also among the biggest debtors, with 31.2 billion yet to be paid, with reports showing it has not made any repayment lately. Welcome back to Watching Business Incorporated here on Channels Television. And we delve into May Day celebrations beginning from Nigeria, where workers converge on the Eagle Square, Abuja, Federal Capital Territory, in commemoration of the day. Attending the event are the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. Boss Mustafa, Minister of Labour and Employment, that's Mr. Chris Ngige, Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Mr. Mohammed Bello, and the Minister of Women Affairs, Mrs. Holland Hallen. The presidential candidate of the Labour Party in the 2023 presidential election, Mr. Peter Obi, was also in attendance. Past and present leaders of the Nigeria Labour Congress and the Trade Union Congress, as well as those of other affiliate unions, are present there at that celebration. Well, this year's Workers' Day celebration has the theme Workers' Rights and Socio-Economic Justice. And apart from there, in the Federal Capital Territory, we have other states in the Federation here in Nigeria holding parades. There you see Edo State there, joined with the governor and his deputy, joining workers who are happy to parade and march past or the executive there. That's the picture you see there is from Edo State. We do see there other state. This is Cross River State, where the workers have met in their uniforms, brightly dressed and ready to march past, celebrate the day, and of course discuss issues which include their welfare as the workers stay in focus on this day, May 1st.
Let's put our hands together as she takes the microphone for Comrade Mrs.
All right. It's not just about Nigeria. There are also other African countries who are celebrating.
The leader of this group. She's looking beautiful. Oh, Excellency. Because they have faith in you, they have trust in you, and they solid believe in you.
So there we have workers who are dressed in parades and march past there celebrating the day. But outside Nigeria, Zimbabwe joins the world to celebrate Labor Day. All workers have been asked to unite and support government initiatives that will foster development and economic growth as the mantra of leaving no place and no one behind gains momentum. The Zimbabwe Federation of Trade Unions is holding its main celebration at Victoria Falls. The ZFTU Secretary General is asking workers at all levels to fight corruption as they target attaining Vision 2030. Then in Kenya, KANU Party leader Gideon Moi is asking the government to increase the minimum wage for Kenyan employees. Gideon wishes Kenyans a happy Labor Day and said that many Kenyan workers are struggling to make ends meet due to low wages and poor working conditions. He said it's up to the incumbent regime to prioritize policies that promote dignified and fair working conditions. During last year's Labor Day celebration, former President Uhuru Kenyatta had increased the minimum wage by up to 12%. Before the increase, the lowest paid worker earned 13,500 shillings. After the 12% increase, the minimum wage rose to 15,120 increase of 1,620. Uhuru said there was an increase in the cost of living and inflation at the time was also high. In Ghana, the Industrial and Commercial Workers Union, ICU, is raising concerns about the inclusion of pension funds under a new domestic debt exchange program. According to the ICU, the survival of workers now and in the future depends largely on their present incomes and future pensions. On this score, the ICU is asking that achieving a living wage for the workers of Ghana and by extension protecting incomes and pensions must be the responsibility of all stakeholders in the socio-economic equation of the country. The ICU, however, admonished employers to show commitment and pay workers a living wage in conformity with international standards to commiserate with their toils and sacrifices for increased productivity, translating into economic growth and national development. Well, let's stay there in Ghana, where we have Professor John Gatsi, joining us to tell us how the celebration is going on over there. Professor Gatsi, good afternoon and happy Labor Day, happy May Day.
Thank you.
So what does the celebration look like in Ghana? In Nigeria, we see a lot of march past and parade by unions and government officials also converging for that. How does it look like in Ghana?
Well, majority of workers are at home, fraternizing with their families and friends. But this morning, the president and his team had a debate with the labor unions to speak about the May Day. But the major issue that came up during the May Day celebration was the debt exchange program and the IMF program that we are expecting. The president did mention that we are now left with the External Creditor Committee to sign an agreement with China will join soon, and the deal will be clinched. So that was the main message that the president gave to the labor union. And then he also indicated that the debt exchange program would not affect pension funds, even though on April 7, the finance minister signed a letter inviting the pension funds to come on board to join the debt exchange program. But today, the president told the labor unions and pension funds managers that they are poised not to include the pension funds into the arrangement.
Well, that sounds like good news, because we remember that workers had gone picketing to, especially Ministry of Finance and all of that. Is there like an arrangement, an agreement, or compromise on both sides? Do we have anything like that now?
Well, that sounds like a good news, but many Ghanaians don't take those things anymore because regarding the debt exchange program, if they tell you A, you might be expecting B to happen. So the fact that the president clarified that does not mean it will not happen, does not mean that the people trust the statement, because this was a statement drafted and signed by the finance minister before the labor unions were up in arms against the government. So as to whether what he said will come to pass or not, we cannot ascertain that unless we give some time to pass.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor John Gatsi, for your time this afternoon. Professor Gatsi is the Dean, University of Cape Coast in Ghana. And enjoy the rest of your Labor Day. So that's it on the program. Happy Labor Day. Enjoy the rest of your day. Make the most of it. I'm Ini John Mekwa.